We're now going, okay.
Right, we're in action.
Right.
We can eradicate things that are not right, can we?
Oh yeah, no problem.
That's all right.
Now
then.
it'll be me who'll be creaking.
Yeah, you will a bit.
Right, can you tell me your name? Oh, sorry, it's the, what is it today? The 6th of September 2011. Can you tell me your name, please?
Susan Draper.
And your date of birth?
14th of the 12th, 1950.
And what does that make you today?
It makes me 60 and a bit.
And where were you born?
I was born in Chorley Hospital in Eves Lane, but I lived at Anderton Mill at Maudsley.
Right. How long have you been there?
I was born at Anderton Mill. I lived there till I was in my 20s, and then I moved just a little way into Eccleston, and then I moved to Heskin, and then I've come down here. So I haven't really moved very far at all.
No.
That's about it.
Right. What were your parents' names?
My parents were Job Maudsley, J-O-B, as in the Bible, and Doris Mitten.
Right.
And my mum came from Nelson, and my dad came from Maudsley.
Right. Okay.
From sort of near Maudsley Catholic Church, so not very far away.
Okay, I'm just going to move this camera around a little bit.
Right.
So don't worry. Trouble is when you start doing this.
Yeah, it twiddles it.
Yeah. So if it can be over my shoulder, then it's almost like you're looking better at the camera, if you know what I mean.
Right, I'm with you. Well, I'm not trying to think about camera.
No, don't worry.
I know what you mean.
It's not doing anything. I'll just bring you down a little touch. So that's a bit. I can see you. Hands, just in case you want to.
Right.
I'm going to start again. All right.
Right,
That's
it's no
all
problem.
right.
It's no problem. Start as many times as you like.
What's your name, please?
Susan Draper.
And your date of birth?
14th of the 12th, 1950.
And what does that make you today?
60 and a bit.
Okay. Where were you born?
I was born in Eves Lane Hospital at Chorley, but I lived at Anderton Mill, Maudsley.
Okay. And what were your parents' names?
My parents' names were Job Maudsley, J-O-B, as in the Bible, and Doris Mitten. And my father came from Maudsley, my mother came from Nelson.
All right, so that's a fair distance,
Quite a
isn't
fair
it?
distance. Yeah. My dad worked at Rubber Works at Leyland, and he got moved with his job up to that area, to Nelson, and Mum worked in the same factory in Nelson, and that's where they met.
Right.
And eventually married up there, and then they came back to live over this way.
So what was she doing in Nelson?
Mum was doing something to do with balloons or something to do with the wartime anyway, and Dad was a celluloid fitter or something at that time over there.
Right, okay. Do you know what he was doing at Leyland?
I don't actually know what he was doing, only that it was the Rubber Works, and that's where he was working at the time, and he got moved with his job.
Was it?
It would be in Mum and Dad got married 1939, I would say, just before 1939.
Yeah, is it what became BTR?
It will be what became BTR.
Because my granddad and my dad used to work there as well.
Yeah, I would say it was what was BTR, But I never really knew what he was doing actually at that time. But I know on the marriage certificate it said that that's where he was working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my eldest brother was born up Nelson Way, and he was born in 1939.
Right.
And so that's where they were at that time.
So how many brothers and sisters have
I've
you
got 3 older brothers, no sisters.
Right.
And so my eldest brother was born in Nelson, and then the next one down was born, I think, at sort of Burnley or somewhere in that area, and then the next one was born in Wigan, because obviously they'd moved down here then. Yeah. Back down to Maudsley.
Right. Okay.
And they did live at Cedar House Farm, which is now Cedar Gallery.
Oh right. Okay.
And Dad rented. This is just before I was born, rented half of the farmhouse, and another Maudsley relation rented the other half, and they lived there as 2 families.
Right.
And then we moved to Anderton Mill just before I was born, and I was born 1950.
Right.
So I'm the youngest.
Which school did you go to?
I started off school at Catholic school, which was St Peter and Paul's, because it was the nearest. And there was no way of getting to Bispham, which would have been the Church of England school, although I was Church of England. So I went to Catholic school from being 4 till I was possibly about maybe 7 or 8. And then they got a little taxi to take the Church of England children to Bispham school. So then I went to Bispham school.
All right, okay.
And from that age.
So did they mind you being at the Catholic
Not
school?
at all.
Wasn't
no.
a problem.
And I went to all the Catholic religious festivals. I did the Crowning of Mary. I did all the things like that at St Peter and Paul's, and I had a lovely time. It was a lovely school.
Yeah.
And they had a coke fire in the corner. It was really, really nice.
I suppose when you're young, you're not bothered about that.
I never even thought about it. You never
No.
even thought. And I went to all the church services, and it never bothered me at all.
Right.
It was grand. And I used to walk, because it was only just literally down the road. I walked to school, walked home for my lunch, and walked back all by myself. You know what I mean? Not like you would do today.
Yeah.
So.
So can you remember who your teachers were at
I
the
can.
Catholic
The teacher
school?
was Miss Smith.
Yeah.
Was the headmistress, and she used to live just not far away at Anderton Mill in a cottage that had been a mill.
Right.
That's where it obviously got its name from. And then the teacher of my class was Miss Lawnthorne, and I can remember it well.
Yeah. And what sort of lessons did you do?
We did just normal reading, writing. We didn't write on slates. We did have books. We'd sort of moved on a bit by then, but were reading, writing, obviously religious instruction, which was very important, PE, and that was basically it. Geography, history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That type of thing. And it was, I think, at one time an all boys school, but then they had mixed classes when I was there. But they had obviously the separate toilets, and I think we had separate play areas from the boys.
Yeah. Can I ask if you're right or left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Do you remember if there was anybody in the class who was left-handed?
Yes, and they used to make them write with the right.
Did they? And,
Yeah.
and how did they find that?
Difficult. It was difficult, but they used to make them do that. And in fact, I know a lady who was in the same position as that. She's a little bit older than me, and she can now write perfectly with both hands.
Right.
Because she was told to do it at school.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm right-handed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm left-handed, but
Yeah.
when I was at school, it wasn't a problem.
No, it wasn't, but it was earlier. Yeah, they didn't like them to be left-handed,
Yeah.
because obviously it throws you writing the wrong way around, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it can be hard work, but
I know I write with the paper that way.
Yes, some people.
So I can actually go
that's
down.
It.
If I write with the paper upright,
It goes.
I can't see it.
No, I can imagine.
Or I know people who will write
Yeah.
with the hand upper.
Up, or turn round,
and sort of drag the pen across
but,
rather than
no,
push it.
it's not a problem now, which is
No,
good, really.
yeah.
But I mean, it was then. It was a problem.
Yeah.
But we had many happy days.
Right.
It was good, and we used to have a little sleep. I can remember having a sleep after lunch. We used to put our head on the desk and have a little sleep.
Yeah.
And but it's funny, you can remember that all them years ago. I can really remember I can remember the clothes I wore and everything going to school.
Yeah.
And you just can't believe that you can remember it so vividly, can you?
I know.
Yeah.
I've heard a few people say that they went to sleep or they had little cots.
Some of them used to lie on the floor on a little bed thing.
Yeah.
But I remember lying on the table. I don't remember ever lying on the floor.
Yeah.
But they did used to have little beds, I think.
And the fact that people have said that, it's actually bringing something
Yeah,
back
it's
to
funny,
me.
isn't it, that?
And I don't really remember sort of having a period where it was
No.
you will go to sleep or
No,
you'll have a
but
rest
you
or
used
something.
to just rest. It
I
was
think we
after
must
lunch.
have done. We must
Yeah,
have
you
done.
must have had a little rest after lunch.
Yeah. So when you moved on to Bispham,
I went on to Bispham School then. That was slightly different at Bispham. I would say not quite as friendly because it was a little bit bigger school.
Yeah.
And so obviously I went to Bispham School until I did my 11 plus. Went up to Bispham and went in a taxi which took us every day.
do you know whose taxi it was?
It was a fella from Ildale, and his name was Fred Hume, I think, or Hume or something like that. He might have been a butcher, I think. I might be wrong, but he might have been a butcher.
I think you're right,
At
actually.
the bottom of that
Hillside
hill.
Avenue.
Yeah, that's it. He was from there.
Yeah, was it it was not Stanley Humes.
I can't just think, but
I
it
know
was
what you mean.
something to
Yeah,
that,
it was
similar
Humes.
name to that,
It was
yeah.
Humes, yeah.
And that's whose taxi they got, and he used to come for us every morning, and there'd possibly be maybe about 4 or 5 of us,
Right.
because there wasn't that many houses really around
No.
there. And I mean, we had no bathroom at home there. I mean, I lived in that house till I was sort of in my 20s, and we still had no bathroom and no inside toilet.
Yeah.
Toilet was one that they came to empty,
Right.
and a bin and a wooden board with a hole in it, and then so we'd no bathroom. We used to go across road for a bath to Mrs Jones's, and that was sort of like maybe once a week. Other than that, we'd have a washing kitchen.
Right.
You know, up as far as possible and down
Yeah.
as far as possible and leave possible to look after itself. And that was what we used to do, you know.
Yeah.
But you just got on with it. And our little back kitchen was no bigger than, you know, than this really. It was tiny.
So what we're talking about, 6 foot?
6 foot, yeah, 6 foot, yeah.
Yeah.
Tiny, tiny little thing.
Yeah.
And you just had to shut the door and hope that nobody come in when you were all stripped off, you know.
Right.
We just did it, you know.
So it was a case of boiling a kettle?
Boiling a kettle, yeah.
Yeah.
When we had a boiler for when Mum did, you know, washing day, washing, but we just had a boiler, a kettle otherwise.
Yeah.
And you just filled the bowl up and hope for best, really, and that's what you did, you know, get on with it.
I'll come back to your home life
Yeah,
in
no
a few
problem.
minutes, but if we can keep at Bispham, do you remember your teachers who you had there?
It was Mr. Pritchard was the headmaster.
Yeah.
And you know, I can't remember any other names.
Was Mrs. Challoner there?
Yes, Mrs. Challoner. That rings a bell. Yeah, Mrs. Challoner. I remember that name. Yeah, and Mr. Pritchard, who was headmaster, and he lived, I think, next door.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was.
Can you remember what they were like?
They were very nice. I can remember all my school days were nice. I have no regrets about any of my school. I enjoyed it all really.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the brightest one, but I did enjoy
You enjoyed
it.
going?
I enjoyed going, yeah. And I went to Sunday school at Bispham. I went to Sunday school at that school. I went there to Sunday school. And I always walked walking day, Maudsley walking day I used to walk. And yeah, I enjoyed going to Bispham.
Yeah. How different was it to Maudsley?
I would say just not quite as homely. Perhaps because there was more children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would think that's all I could say really. It was just not quite as friendly.
Right.
But Catholic school was nice. You know what I mean? There was, and I still have friends who I went to school with when I started at Catholic school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and still see them. You know, which is nice, isn't it? Really.
It's funny as you move on.
Yeah, you still. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you lose contact with people over the years, but then they still, you know, come up again somewhere along the line, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds quite sad, but really, I've only got a couple of people who I would have
but I
gone
think
to school
you do,
with and that I remember. You know.
You move on. I think
Yeah.
everybody in life moves on, and sometimes you have to just let your friend. You have to let them go, haven't you?
Yeah.
And new people come along, and that's how life is, isn't it? You know what I mean? You can't just stick with the same thing forever.
No.
Things change, and people drift apart. But it doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It's just how it is, isn't it? But there's some people that always seem to crop up again, isn't there? You know, and I think that's good, really. It's just
I mean, you might meet them years after.
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
still get on with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Renew
Yeah,
friendships
that's
and
it,
acquaintances.
That's nice.
Yeah. What sort of games did you play when you were at school?
Well, I can remember playing hopscotch, and I can remember things like that. And we used to play a lot of tig and that sort of thing. We used to play at pretending we were cowboys and Indians and things like that. I can remember playing that, but we didn't really play anything that cost anything. It was just play, you know what I mean? And just hiding and running and whatever. And basically that was it, really.
Yeah. How did you play hopscotch?
We would, we had chalk and we would draw on the floor, and
So what do you draw on the floor?
you draw the numbers on the floor.
Right. And
for the
are these in like squares?
in squares, yeah. And then you go from one to the other, and you have to try not to touch the lines in between.
Right. So you've got a stone or something.
Yeah,
have you?
it was it was
Like a pebble
like
or
a
something?
pebble that you used to do it with.
So what did you do with that? Throw it as
You
far as you
throw
could?
it as far as you could, and then hop and hope you could get to where you were going. You know,
Right.
but gosh, that's a long time ago.
What about skipping? Did you do
Yeah,
skipping?
we did skipping as well, and obviously we sung all the little songs, but I can't remember anything that we sang.
Can you not?
But we did used to sing, but of course that's a long time ago. Really, I can only remember doing that probably at the Catholic school. I don't think we did a lot of that when we got to Bispham.
No?
It was more when I was tiny, I would say that, really.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, happy days.
Because I remember girls that have a huge skipping rope.
Yeah,
and
we
there'd be
did.
about
And used to go
10
round.
or 11
yeah,
people
that's
going
it.
in,
Going
yeah.
in and out. They used to run in and out, didn't they? I
Yeah.
can remember doing that. Yeah, playing at skipping. I don't think they ever play skipping now, do
So,
they?
probably not.
I don't think they know what a skipping rope was.
Well,
No.
if it's not on a computer,
If it's not on
they
a
don't want to
computer and
know.
it doesn't cost money, they don't want to know, do they?
I know.
It's quite sad, really.
Yeah. Did you have any like youth organisations that you were part of?
We didn't know.
No.
I never remember doing anything at all like that. I mean, I think perhaps some people would maybe be in scouts and things like that at early days, but I never did. The only thing that I used to do was, as I say, I walked at walking day and went to Sunday school on a Sunday. And other than that, I didn't do anything out of the house at all, really. And I mean, but of course then we could wander about anyway. I mean, I used to wander up to the top of Eric Hill. I always had a dog and wandered on my own and nobody bothered, you know what I mean? Whereas today they can't do that, can they, you know, really? But I didn't actually have anything that we were involved in outside of the family, really. Yeah. You know.
Tell me about Walking Day. What was Walking Day?
Day was lovely. Mostly Tea Party Day, they used to call it. And they had a big marquee on the cricket field. And obviously the cricket match would probably be on that day anyway. And they used to set it out with long trestle tables. And we'd have lovely potted meat sandwiches and little jellies and whatever. And we all used to meet at Bispam School. And we would walk down into down Bispam Green. And I can remember carrying baskets of roses, and then I can remember being under the banner when I was a bit older, and I can remember the little ones being in the horse and cart, all decorated up, which was nice. And then we would all go, obviously, for this tea. We would go to the church, and then we would sing a bit and whatever. Then the tea was the main thing, and obviously the fair would be there, so it would be a really exciting day, that, you know what I mean? And we would all look forward to that all year, you know. And I can also remember they did a Rose Queen as well at Maudsley, and we used to do, I remember being like sort of in waiting for the Rose Queen, and I've got photographs of that where I've been in the Rose Queen, which was very, very good as well.
So did that take place on the Walking Day? Or was
no, it was a separate day, but I can't remember when that was. But it was a separate day, the Rose Queen, where they crowned the girl, and I can remember carrying these baskets of roses at Walking Day, you know, and that was nice.
Do they still have Walking Day?
They still have Walking Day. I don't know how big of an affair it is, but they do still have a Walking Day, at Maudsley. I think they do. I mean, everywhere, but I don't think they're what they used to be.
No, I mean, I've got photographs of Walking Day coming up Bispam because my mother was in it.
Yeah, well,
you know.
So I used to love Walking Day, and I used to love, you know, band playing. It used to be lovely. You know, we did have a good day, and it was nice to have this bit of food, you know, which was all set out in there, and you can smell it almost sometimes. Like these potted meat sandwiches and all this, you know, all set out on table, and like to us little ones then it was. I mean, we lived quite well at home, and we didn't really want for any food. We was fine, but it used to be nice to see it all set out, you know, on a long table in there, and all these cakes and everything. It was lovely.
So it was all homemade, was it?
Oh yeah, all homemade, and obviously all the ladies of the village would be helping. You know what I mean? Probably my mum helped as well, I would think. You know, and I always remember having new white sandals to walk. You know, and a lovely white dress that Mum used to make.
So again, it was all homemade.
All homemade,
stuff.
all homemade. Mum had a sewing machine. Well, I think it was a Halliwell machine. Mum had a treadle Halliwell, and she used to make all my school clothes and everything. Yeah. But I always had a new winter coat. Right. I can always remember going for a new winter coat every year. So.
You weren't plastered up in goose grease and
no,
brown
I don't
paper,
remember having any grease-proof and brown paper, but I don't. I mean, we were cold at home. We had only a coal fire. We had oilcloth upstairs, no carpets. No. We had coconut matting downstairs and a carpet square in front room. But we never really were ill. I can never really remember being ill. And you know, I mean, we used to just get up and you never messed about in your dressing gown like they do today. You just got dressed and as quick as you could, really, and get some, you know what I mean? You didn't mess about, because you couldn't do, could you? No. And obviously, if you'd go outside to the toilet as well, that was a major ordeal, you know. But as I say, I don't really remember it ailing anything much, really. Yeah. We were quite well.
That's because you didn't have carpet.
I can remember my dad always using some stuff, which I think was probably what you would give a horse. It was carbolic oil, and he used to get it from some sort of bent chemist somewhere, and he used to say, I must get another bottle of this carbolic oil, and he used to put it on any cuts or anything he had, and he said it would cure everything. So I don't know what that was.
It's probably some sort of antiseptic.
Probably so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Going back to your school, do you remember
Yeah.
your classroom layouts? How were they desks?
When
or-
I was at little Catholic school, I can remember being in a big room with sort of a mixture of ages in it, not just little ones, I would say older ones as well. And I can remember the fire, there was a cork fire and a big fire guard, I can remember that in one corner, and like sawdusty stuff on the floor, and teacher's desk. And we were all sort of, we were in rows, I would say we were in rows. And but quite a few of us, I would say, not maybe all the school, but quite a lot of us. I would think there maybe only 2 classrooms.
Right.
And we were sort of a lot of children of a mixture of an age, I would say. And because I can remember seeing like little tiny ones, as we got a little bit bigger, there'd be little tiny ones in with us as well, you know.
Yeah. Were we all doing the same sort of work?
I think we probably were all
Yeah.
doing the same sort of work, yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't sort of split up
No,
into.
I think we were probably, because I don't remember any other teachers, you know what I mean? Only, I don't remember only the one teacher in the room, whereas now in school there's quite a few teachers in there in a room, you know, doing bits with little groups
That's
here
right,
and whatever.
assistants, I think.
Not like
teaching
that.
assistants,
Not like
they
that
call
now.
them,
No.
The teacher held the power.
Exactly, and they really did, because we would never have answered back.
No.
I would never have answered back to my parents. I
No.
wouldn't have dared. My mum was more strict than my dad, really. She would only need to look at us. She never needed to do anything else, only look.
Yeah.
And that we knew that if she looked, that was it, you know. But same with teachers, and I mean even the teacher, the headmistress who lived just round the corner from me, if we saw her out of school, it was, you know, I mean, you sort of nearly bowed down to her, really. Even if it was just on a Sunday morning or something, you would still, it was Miss Smith, and you would speak to her properly, and that's how you did, you know. You wouldn't do anything. You wouldn't dare do anything. Just wouldn't.
You showed them a bit of respect.
You did, yeah. But that's how you were brought up, and it's just
right, yeah.
it's just one of them things, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you just respected. And same with older people. You know, you would never call them by their first name. I mean, even now, some people I know, I couldn't call them by their first name if I tried. I have to say Mrs. Such a Body, because it's just how you do, isn't it?
Well, that's right. I mean, I interviewed
You
I interviewed one of my old teachers
You
at
do?
Bisping.
Oh, did you?
Mrs. Young, it was. And it was. I had to say to her, "Do you mind if I call you Margaret?"
Yeah.
Because you know,
It's a
I mean,
funny thing.
I'm 50 now,
Yeah,
you know,
but
and
it's
you
a
still
funny
think
thing.
Mrs. Young, you
yeah,
know. It's,
you can't. It's. I don't know. It's just something about it. Older, anybody that's older than myself, I have to say Mrs. I can't say them, and they'll say, "Oh, call me Jane." I can't.
Yeah.
You just can't. You know, it's just a funny thing.
It's like we used to call the lady next door where my mother lives,
Yeah.
Mrs. Hayes, because
Yeah.
that was her name. And it was my mother would call her Mrs.
Yeah,
Hayes.
well,
you know.
my mum
and it was
used to do.
ages
My
until
mother
you know
used
after.
to be, yeah, she used to be the same, and
Yeah.
she used to say, "Well, go next door to Mrs. Glover and borrow me such a thing." And
Yeah.
and you know, her name was Lucy, but it was always Mrs. Glover. She never called her anything else, you know. Funny, yeah.
You mentioned 11 plus earlier.
Yeah.
When we got to the point where did you know what 11 plus was?
Well, not really. No,
No?
I just knew that it was something that if you passed, you went to grammar school, and if you didn't, you went to wherever.
Right,
You know
so-
what I mean? And it was simple as that. And I wasn't that brilliant. I do remember at Bisping School there being a separate little group, if I remember, at the time when it come for 11 plus, where they seemed to sort of get taught a little bit more because they were the bright ones, as I thought.
Yeah.
Maybe about 8 of them who were obviously going to pass their 11 plus, and they were sort of in one corner getting a bit more tuition than bog standard, who wasn't going to do anything anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I do remember that sticking in my mind a little bit.
Right.
And
So when it came to actually, did you do any practicing and of things?
well, I would think we probably did,
Yeah.
really, but I think they just sort of thought, well, they're not going to do a lot anyway, so we'll
Yeah.
stick with these that's going to do it, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how I remember it, really. And so I basically myself knew that I wasn't going to pass it anyway. You know what I mean? I think 2 of my brothers went to grammar school.
Yeah.
They did, but no, I didn't.
Right. So do you remember actually taking it?
I do remember actually
And
taking
what
it.
were you in the classroom? or-
Just in the class,
Yeah.
the classroom, in the hall. I remember.
Yeah.
It was in the hall, not in the classroom. I would say in the hall where we did assembly.
Right. So that's
I would say it was in the hall where we did 11 plus.
I'm trying to think now. If you look at the front of the school, the hall was with a stage, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And there was like a partition between the two
That's it.
classes, and
Yeah.
you could open and close.
That's
right,
it. Yeah. I think I would remember. I think it would be in there if I'm remembering rightly. That's
Yeah.
where it would be. Yeah.
Right.
And
So how did you feel? Were you nervous or?
I would be nervous. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would imagine I'd be nervous, but I wouldn't be, as I say, under any pressure because I would be thinking that even my mum and dad wouldn't be expecting me to pass.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, well, I must pass or but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I was never under any sort of pressure to think that. You know what I mean? Because I had a wonderful childhood at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I never thought anything more about it. Just I was only told to do my best, and that was it.
Fair enough.
Which is fine.
Okay, so there come the day you get an envelope.
Yeah, and your pencil in your hand, and you've not to pick it up until they tell you to.
Yeah. And so looking at it, do you remember the sort of questions?
I don't
you got?
remember
No.
any questions at all. No, I
No.
don't remember anything that they asked me. I can just remember it would probably be a sickling feeling, you know,
Yeah.
thinking. But no, I don't remember anything that we were asked to do.
Yeah.
Don't remember it at all.
You're just glad when it was over.
Yeah, just glad when it was over.
Yeah. So eventually you'd get a letter at home.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how
so-
it would happen. I think. Yeah, I would have thought so.
So you were dreading the day, waiting for that.
That's
Maybe
it,
I don't know.
yeah.
But, so where I presume you didn't pass your 11th
No, I
class.
didn't, and I
Yeah.
went to Croston School afterwards.
Right.
Yeah. I went to
So how did
Croston.
you find the jump from Bispham to
It was
Croston?
fine. Yeah, we were all right. Yeah, it's
This is what's now Bishop Rawsthorne.
Bishop Rawsthorne,
Yeah.
yeah. Went to Bishop Rawsthorne. So there, from Anderton Mill, I had to walk down to Dart Lane, which was the main road then, to get a bus into school. But no, we were fine. As I say, I enjoyed all my school life really,
Yeah.
and I did okay. I was in sort of a middle of the road class at Croston, and everything was
Yeah.
all right. Yeah.
And so
Obviously, you enjoy some things better than
Well, you
others,
do,
don't you?
yeah.
Everybody does, you know. But
how different was school
it
life?
was obviously a lot
Croston,
different
yeah.
because obviously there was more children. I'd never, because when with living where we lived out there in the country, we didn't really have a lot to do with anybody else at all anyway. Really, only family and a few families that were round and about and their children.
Yeah.
So I'd never really been in a place where there were so many people for one thing, really. But yeah, we was fine.
Yeah. And were lessons different?
They were different. I think obviously we would have more lessons than what we'd been doing before, and things like science and things like that would come into it, because before that we hadn't done any. We'd done like nature study, which would be, so now you would do science, and then you would do what's the other one to do with nature, but it's not science.
Biology.
But yeah, you do biology, which was slightly different, because
Yeah.
other than that, we'd done nature study, which would be just looking at like acorns and things,
Right,
wouldn't it,
yeah.
really,
Yeah.
and going on a nature walk. And so that would be different. Obviously, we'd always do religious instruction, and your maths and English, and geography and history. And then I think I did, obviously, art, and I think I did woodwork for some reason.
All right.
I decided I'd do some woodwork.
Was that something that
I think
you
it
could
was something
you could get the choice?
Yeah, I think we had a little choice,
Right.
because I never at school,
No.
but there must have been a reason why I could do. There must have been a choice that I could do, and I did woodwork, and I made a clothes maiden and a towel rail,
Right.
and the clothes maiden's still in action,
Yeah.
still working. So that's.
So you found it was a bit of something you could.
Yeah, something I enjoyed. It was
Enjoyed it,
something
yeah.
different,
Yeah.
yeah. And I did art, quite liked art, and I liked geography. Didn't like maths at all. But yeah, it was just I think the fact that there was more people there, more children, and obviously finding your way around the school was like a nightmare. When you know what I mean, because you think you'd never done anything like that before, had you? You know,
Yeah.
and then. I think coming home on the bus used to be a bit hard, because there'd be some like sort of rowdy ones and whatever, and you'd never had anything to do with anything like that before either. It was just out of your box, really, wasn't it? You know, you didn't do
So
that.
how many of your friends went with you to Croston?
I had I was sort of left on my own a bit, because there was two more girls I was particularly friendly with from Anderton Mill. One passed and went to Ormskirk Grammar, and the other one passed her 11 plus and went to Chorley Grammar. So I was the only one from Anderton Mill really of that age that was going to Croston, so I actually went on my own. But there was a couple of lads, I think, as well that went
Right.
with me. But then, of course, some of the children from Anderton Mill were Catholic children anyway, so they went to a Catholic one, a secondary.
So
Catholic
where
school.
would that have been?
Catholic one was at Leyland, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might have been a St Mary's at Leyland. I might be wrong, but it might have been at Leyland. So they went. I know there was twin lads that we used to be friendly with round the corner, and they went to the Catholic school.
Yeah.
So I ended up really going on my own to Croston. But there was another girl from Hilldale who I'd gone to Bisping school with who went as well. So she was my friend sort of through school, really. Yeah. And another one from Bisping Green who went to school with me.
Who were they? Do you remember the names?
Pat Hodson from Hilldale. They used to have the shop at